We're back on the BCSN SportsWrap. Charles and Jamie sitting in for Brian Fulford, and we are joined by none other than John Grant, Executive Director of the Cricket MEAC-SWAC Challenge, the Cricket Celebration Bowl. And what is the official title of Mr. Grant, the Cricket
Well,
Band?
you asked me to nod earlier. I will have to say, although cricket is a sponsor, they're not the title of the
Okay.
band of the year. So they are
Okay.
a part of it, but they're not the title. How are you guys
Okay. Do
doing?
we have a title sponsor yet?
We have several that we are in conversation with right now, and we will be making an announcement, in the very near future of who would have those naming rights. But there's a lot of interest in it.
All right. Well, let's start right there. Normally we bring you on this time of the year to talk about the MEAC-SWAC challenge and whether Jackson State is going to beat South Carolina State this year in Atlanta. And we're going to get to that. But the chatter for the weekend has been the band championship. Talk to us. Tell us about it. Where did this idea come from? And I'm gonna ask it straight up. Did Dr. Cavill's poll over the last 2 years influence you in it?
Well, first, let me start by True AD. Thank you for having me on today. I feel honored to be on with such an illustrious group of people who are covered HBCU sports and all things HBCU. Charles, certainly good to see you. Jamie, good to see you as well. Delighted to be here with you guys. Actually honored. We have actually been working on the Band of the Year concept since 2017. And it started with the idea that we would produce and conduct an objective HBCU band ranking process that was at the time posted and worked in conjunction with the Undefeated, with the intent that it would ultimately end up with an event that would actually crown a national champion. So for the years 2017, 18, and 19, we produced band rankings in conjunction with ESPN's Undefeated, which has now been rebranded to Anscape. We did not produce a ranking in 20 because of COVID. We did do it in 21, and we held off again in 2022 in preparation of the announcement this year of the Band of the Year championship event.
All right. My next question before I turn it over to Charles and Jamie. We all grew up we watched Drumline when we were growing up. We've seen Drumline too. Will this be something like what we saw in the movie Drumline? Is that kind of the what we're going to see when we're in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, or is it going to be different? How much of it will be like what we see in the movies?
Well, the movie was fictional, as you all know. And we are excited that we are working closely with Don P. Roberts. Don was the executive band producer of both Drumline movies, along with a number of other credits that he has to his name. But no, it won't be anything similar to that. This will actually be a season-long race just to earn the right to get to the championship, so that for Division I and Division II bands. So the top two at the end of the season in the rankings, cumulative rankings. So the top two, regardless of conference, because it's conference neutral. If you make it to the top two Division I and you're the top two Division II, those four bands we will bring them to Atlanta. We're covering the cost of their expenses, and there is a significant payout to make it to the championship. So this is higher than anything bands will have ever seen as it relates to that part of it. And then those 4 bands, the 2 Division IIs will compete head to head, and the 2 Division I's will compete head to head for the national championship and the title of Band of the Year.
All right, Jamie, well, I guess your question got answered. A&T will be included, even though y'all not in a HBCU conference anymore. So with that, Jamie, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Mr. Grant, honored to always talk to you. How much, and I know there's been some banter back and forth already as far as who's included, things of that nature, and that question was addressed. How much will the conferences themselves have as far as showcasing what their bands are able to do as far as judging who should represent their conference, even though it is conference lists?
The actual rankings will be as they have been since we started the rankings. We have a committee of experts, and that committee, independent of conferences, etc., they will be the ones that will be conducting the adjudications of the performances, and when they produce their evaluation, those are the rankings that will be used. So the conferences won't have any specific engagement in how those rankings are produced. Now, I will say this, that we will have, as a part of that committee, of the committee that is comprised, that committee will be comprised of HBCU band directors from the Division I that will be adjudicating the Division II bands. And you'll have some band directors from Division II that will be adjudicating the Division I's. So there will be current band directors involved. But they will not be evaluating their own division. They'll be evaluating the other division. So we wanted to make sure that there is some inclusion for current band directors, and we've had a lot of requests from band directors to be on that committee, and that selection that will be made accordingly. But that hopefully that answers your question as it relates to how the ranking process will occur, and we will have a portion of that will be based on fan vote as well. So fans will have an opportunity through the season to vote. And to have their voices be heard as well.
Yeah, that kind of leads in. Thank you for the clarification, and it kind of is a lead into my next question. There's a lot of band influencers within the band space, and so will the fan voting be the only opportunity those folks that have kind of are the people that are the boots to the ground will have as far as their influence on who gets in, what bands are within the rankings, things of that nature? How much outside of the experts that you're talking will have some kind of influence on who gets in?
Very little. It's very similar. If you think about the college football playoffs, you have a committee of professionals and who are experts, and they using their expert evaluation on a regular basis that's neutral. So and we want to make sure that is very much that this is a neutral evaluation and based on the objective criteria that the committee develops, because the committee will develop that criteria by which they will adjudicate. I can tell you they'll be looking at certain areas, but again, it'll be the final for them, but they're going to be looking at, I do know, very similar to what we've been doing since 2017. Musicality, originality, precision, your ancillary groups, your drum majors, your drum lines, etc. And if bands that don't have certain pieces, because not every band has a dance corps, but that won't hurt you as it relates to your rankings and how the points are assigned. Every band doesn't have an ancillary corps with flag corps and so forth. But that does not hurt you. So you're not penalized for not having that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I want to be very clear on that as well. So it's going to come down to the committee of experts, because bands, when you're in high school, you're accustomed to adjudication. All of pretty much bands across the country go through an adjudication process. This is no different than that. And so the committee's objective, professional assessment of the band's performances will somewhat carry the day.
Before I give it to Charles, I got to ask a follow-up. You said those ancillary groups will not hurt you, but if your ancillary group goes out there and, for lack of a better word, is off rhythm or makes a mistake, will it hurt you in that case? Whereas not having one does not hurt you. But if you put one out there, it's got to be good, right?
Correct. The idea is that, for this, you think of it, I want you to think of it as when we all play very much football. It's wins and losses. With this, it's wins and losses. You got to bring your best performance each game. It's not something or each in each performance. And let me also outline, we're working right now very closely with band directors in communication. Not every performance they have will be adjudicated. There will be identified, working with them, 4 performances. Could be less, might be 3, won't be more than 4, I don't believe. Again, the committee will assess all of that. But let's say if it's 4 performances, the band directors will identify these are the 4 performances we want to be adjudicated on. And then we, as ESPN, we're going to actually put out a schedule, just like a football schedule. So people will know and be able to follow, fans will be able to follow which of these performances are a part of the schedule and the adjudication process. I will say this though, the season will end mid-November, because we have to have an opportunity to put out the last ranking and then to put out a cumulative ranking, which will come out the Monday or Tuesday following Thanksgiving weekend. And those rankings that last cumulative ranking will tell you who's in. And that gives them those bands the opportunity to prepare, to give them enough time to prepare, to participate in to put their show together for the championship.
Go ahead, Charles.
So the SWAC championship game, Mr. Grant, won't count as far as the evaluation.
No, neither will the Bayou Classic.
Bayou Classic either. Okay, interesting.
Yes, sir. It will end prior to that.
Okay. Well, Mr. Grant, it's a pleasure to have you on. And for those who might not know, at Media Day, the day before, me, John Grant, Dr. Cavill, and others had a pretty passionate conversation. And I didn't realize how passionate John Grant is about this stuff. He is a fiery fella when it comes to these type of things. So I appreciate his passion, and that's a side that a lot of people might not know. We talked about this band competition. Do you realize, and for fans, so a lot of fans, this is big of the game as the game itself. As these rankings come out every week, the ebbs and flows of these things go every week. Do you realize the passion, the conversation, and as a history teacher once told me, the cussing and fussing that's going to take place week to week with stuff? Because it is, fans are really passionate about their bands. They love their bands and how it's judged and how it's evaluated. We all know that. You realize what you created does something that's really going to generate a lot of conversation.
And rightfully so. When HBCU bands, in my opinion, I'll speak for me, as are a part of the 3-legged stool that sets the culture for HBCUs. So you've got, football and everything that goes with that, the tailgating, homecomings and everything around that. You've got your Greek letter organizations who really kind of set the social tone on campuses, as well as an attitude of service and giving back. And then the 3rd leg of that stool is music. And our HBCU bands are very much at the forefront of that. So when you take those three things, which is what we're attempting to do here with the Cricket Celebration Bowl and with the Band of the Year, as well as the Cricket MEAC-SWAC Challenge, then we can really put forth and educate the nation on what the cultural experience and the impact and the relevance of our historically Black colleges are. And also, with this event, with this competition, think of it this way: we are now including Division II schools on a major stage, and giving them them an opportunity to participate in a championship weekend. We are also extending beyond just the team. So if your team doesn't make it to the championship weekend, your band can get the school here. So now there are two opportunities in the MEAC and the SWAC to be represented, for these schools to be represented. And finally, Charles, these conversations throughout the season do nothing but bring fans closer into and make them more connected to the sport. And that's what we want. And if we can create that kind of energy that you described, and to have those kind of discussions, and engage in that kind of passion, it only does nothing but solidify our HBCU family.
And the other thing is that, the Battle of the Bands, we've seen these Battle of the Bands competitions all over, and how they draw huge crowds: Houston, Dallas, Montgomery, Atlanta. I mean, when you just have Battle of the Bands, you're going to have thousands upon thousands of folks. So when you have the Celebration Bowl, and then you have 4 bands, battling for Division I, Division II rights, that's going to jack up the attendance even more so when you add that component to it.
And you're absolutely correct, but I do want to delineate: this is not a battle of the bands. And I have a great admiration, great amount of respect, and in terms of our battles of the bands and what they do in the showcasing our HBCUs. But this is not an invitational. You can't be invited. This is not a showcase. So it's not just to have you there to exhibit. You're there to compete, and you're there to win. So this is a Band of the Year competition. It is not it is not a showcase. It's not an invitation. You have to earn your way here. And so that means that you have to, each performance, week in and week out, when you're scheduled to perform, you have to put your absolute very best foot forward. And we think that only makes our band's programs better. We think also what that will do downstream. Now, band directors are looking and to recruit the absolute best talent out there. And what that does, it increases and enhances our music programs and band programs at the high school level, which also creates interest for young people who may not have thought about going into music. But if I'm in the middle school and I see that there is an opportunity, maybe I can't play a sport, but I can be good in music, then I also have a path forward for me to compete, for me to get to a championship, and for me to want to engage in, as we know, the impacts of music. It's unquestioned that young people who are engaged in music are better in math. So it enhances the education opportunity. This, to also close out the answer to your question, we just took the highway, the road to Atlanta, and it's now become the Autobahn. It has been widened and it's faster. And it's more inclusive of more opportunities to make it to Atlanta.
All right. Mr. Grant, I got to ask this question. Since this is for a national championship, does a brother or sister get a ring?
That's a very good question, but understand this: we don't give the rings out for the Cricket Celebration Bowl. The schools do that for themselves. But I will tell you what will happen there won't be a bigger stage at all ever for HBCU bands. And when you tie it to tying it to championship weekend, our motto for the Cricket Celebration Bowl is a champion will rise. And that champion, that applies on football, and it also now applies in our marching band. A champion will rise. And that will be based on what you do to get here and what you do once you are here to get yourself crowned as national champion.
I have a question about the bands real quick, Mr. Grant, if possible. So we know for the big classics that are shown nationally, the Bayou Classic, Celebration Bowl, the network show the band competition at halftime. Is there a television component tied to it yet, or where the networks will show this showcase?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have been showing halftime shows on ESPN during our linear television games. The announcers will tell you, go to ESPN.com and you can see the show in its entirety. And so that already exists. As far as the championship itself, yes, it will be carried on ESPN platforms. It will be on ESPN. It'll be simulcast on ESPN Plus and ESPN.com simply because of music rights. We don't have to go through the process of getting music cleared, and it gives the bands more freedom in terms of the music selections they want to use, because we don't have to worry about clearance and rights fees, etc. If we're streaming. So that simulcast platform will be reaching millions of people. On ESPN.com right now, we have close to 40 million. Actually, I'm sorry, that's less than, I'm thinking about plus. It's over 100 million people that are a part of that access to ESPN.com, because it's a free app. It's not behind the paywall. You can just download the app and you got access. So we're excited about that, because again, you got a season-long stage set with a schedule, and that will also include any of those games that are carried on other networks, because I know that like HBCU Go, they televise their halftime shows. It makes it visible. And any of the other networks that are out there that are showing those shows, but the judges will have access to all of those performances, of the scheduled performances that will be developed.
All right. Just like you see an uptake in student applications after teams win the Celebration Bowl or even participate in the Celebration Bowl, do you think that will be the same thing as a result of this band competition?
Absolutely. There's no question in our mind about it. And it also will give each of the programs, whether you make it to the championship or not, I want you to imagine when the rankings come out, if you're in the top 5, I mean, you have being in the top 5 puts you in the elite group of marching bands, HBCU marching bands in the country. So obviously the goal is to get to Atlanta, but you also your prowess is shown by how you end up in the rankings. Where you don't want to be is at the bottom, like no one ever does. But we'll be ranking on each side up to the top 20 from Division I and the top 20 Division II. So that gives every fan who's following their bands an opportunity to see how they're performing through the season and where they're coming in the rankings.
All right. Last question before I let these other ones get in. As far as the event Friday night, Saturday night, will there be packages where people could get tickets for both Friday and Saturday, or will those be like two separate admissions? You got to buy a Friday night ticket and a Saturday afternoon ticket, and the same thing with like the suites and everything else. Will the suites even be available, or does everybody have to sit in the seat? Because there's somebody out there who wants to know these things as they start making their plans for the third Saturday and the third Friday in December.
That's a very good question. And the answer to your first question, will there be packages? Yes. Fans will have the ability to, when they're buying Cricket Celebration Bowl ticket, that they can buy the Band of the Year ticket as well, and vice versa, because they may decide, I want to sit in the same seat. I want to buy my game ticket, but I also want to sit in that same seat for Band of the Year. So we're allowing them the ability to do that. As far as suites, at this point, we're not fully determined on that in terms of how much we'll open that up for Friday night, because we want to make sure we're pushing fans to, if you're buying suites, we want you to do that specifically for the game on Saturday. But that's not to say it necessarily won't happen in year 2, but I think in year 1 we're going to sort of limit that to just Friday, unless we see how it shapes as we go forward. Fans the fans drive what this is. Right now, we're focusing on making sure that we're creating and building out the right model, because there are a lot of intricacies that will go into this logistically. Having a championship football game, you want to make sure you're giving the teams every opportunity to get prepared and to be in the venue, etc. And then to also integrate now a national championship for marching bands means that our team has a lot of logistics that we're having to work through to make sure that everyone who's playing for a championship gets an opportunity to have the best experience possible.
Jamie?
My last question, and it's, first of all, I love the fact that the Division IIs are included in this mix. How important was that for them to be all included in this competition? Because I know in just private conversations and just conversations in general, you wish it was a ball game that put together, especially the two conferences together in Division II. But how important was it to include them in this competition?
Extremely. It was critically important. We never even conceived without it. I mean, if you look at how we've been ranking bands since 2017, the Division IIs were included in that from the beginning. So there was never any doubt in our mind at all that this would not be inclusive of, like I said, the HBCU family, inclusive of those that are not necessarily a member of HBCU conference, but if they're, and we're having them, they're being ranked sort of as independents. They're in the Division I's, but they're not in the HBCU conference, but they're included as independents in the rankings currently. So we all are a part of a connected network. And that network includes whether you're MEAC and SWAC or CIAA and SIAC, and others that are in those categories. It was always our intent to make sure that we're bringing everyone together, around a form of championship for something that's common to all of us, and that's music, and that is our pride around our marching bands. And we believe that this is going to make this weekend, and it wasn't just about enhancing the Celebration Bowl. I mean, the Celebration Bowl is what it is. We're already at maximum capacity for how we facilitate the stadium, but it was really about how we create additional opportunities. What I call, band members. To me personally, I've never been in a band. I love them like most fans do, but I also know the amount of work that the young people put into it, and they put as much work into their craft as the student athletes that are playing football, and they're put into theirs. And so I consider them athletes as well. When you watch their performances, they have to be in shape. When you watch their performances, they have to be accurate and precise in what they do. And so to give them a similar platform to showcase the hard work that they put in, and then to also not only give them the platform, but you're now compete. You have the ability to compete for something that will matter for your university and for you personally. There's nothing better, if you ask any football player, when they can say they're throughout the rest of their life that they're a national champion. We now are giving that same opportunity to band members who can say that they earned the right to be a national champion.
Hold up, Charles. Mr. Grant, can you hang around for a few more minutes?
Absolutely. As long as you need.
All right, Charles. Hold your question right here. We're overdue for a break. So what we gonna do? We gonna take a break and then we're gonna come back and let Charles get in. And you know something, fellas? We haven't even talked about the doggone game that's coming up in like 4 weeks. So we got to get into the game. But I'm gonna let Charles get his last bad question in right after we come back from this break. You're listening, watching to the BCSN SportsWrap. Charles Edmond, Jamie Walker, special guest John Grant, AD Drew driving the ship tonight. We'll be right back, y'all.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN SportsWrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN SportsWrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
We are back here on the BCSN SportsWrap. Charles Edmond, Jamie Walker, sitting in for Brian Fulford. My name, I'm AD Drew, and over there is John Grant, the executive director of the Cricket MEAC-SWAC Challenge and the Cricket Celebration Bowl. Before we get back to it, I need everyone. I know y'all loving this content. I know y'all love it that we are bringing this to you hot and heavy. I need y'all to hit that thumbs up button. I need you to like. I need you to subscribe. I need you to find a friend and share this podcast with them. And if you're really feeling good about it, you see the information scrolling across the bottom, make a donation to the brother. You know, we ain't asking for a whole lot, just a cup of coffee, but it need to be Starbucks coffee, not McDonald's coffee if you're going to make a donation. That's all I'm going to say. Get back to it. Charles, before we went into the break, you were getting ready to come with a question. Go ahead with it, my brother.
Yeah, quick comment and a question. The comment is, I can attest to how hard the band works because our band, the Sounds of Dynamite All-Corn Marching Band, they actually practice behind a radio station. So I'm in their way and they're in my way when they're practicing out in the parking lot. And 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock, the lights are on and they're going at it. Band director stopping practice because someone's out of tune, someone's out of step. So I can attest to how hard that they work because I get a chance to see that. And my question though is that we were talking about it before you went on. As far as the committee, it is made up of band directors, and we kind of had a suggestion maybe a fan should have a different perspective to be added to the committee. But what you're saying is that the committee's already locked in. You already got your committee set. Is that correct?
Well, what I'm saying is that the committee will be comprised of a number of different people. Some of them will be band directors. Some of them will be experts in the music area. And some you may be on the lookout. We may have some people who are professionals in the music industry who are also a part of this. So it is still being put together as we speak. but it will have a composition of all of those things. But we definitely want to make sure that the people that are a part of it are people who have a deep understanding of the various areas upon which they're going to judge.
All right. Got one from the chat room, Mr. Grant, and I'll put it up on the screen. Is there a performance time limit? How would you know if a band did or did not commit errors? And that comes from Tamara T out of our YouTube chat.
That is a very good question. And let me answer this from the end backwards. Okay, when you have televised games have a 20-minute total halftime, 20 minutes total. So when you are participating in games that we oversee, in order to meet that 20 minutes, bands are restricted to a 7-minute performance during halftime. That's a minute on, a minute off, and they play for 5 minutes. And that is a total of 14 minutes and a half, so that you can give the team an opportunity to come back out, warm up, and get ready for football. We have all, however, seen halftime shows that are extended. Teams are coming out. They're trying to warm up in the end zone while a band is on the field. And I will tell you just speaking personally, that's a culture that we really need to sort of change. It prohibits more of our bands from being televised on linear television, because television is time sensitive and is synchronized. And games that have a tendency where their bands play longer, you never see them on linear television. They'll be on streaming, or they'll be on a tape delay, because we can cut down in a tape delay and make the show what it should be. What we would hope is to get people or get our bands to recognize the value in having, a show that fits within the window of television. It helps the institution, it helps the team, it helps the school, but it also helps them in being able to put on a show that is succinct, that is crisp, and that fits within the window that gives the greatest possible exposure to the institution. Now, when they get to the championship, the performances will be 15 minutes. They're going to get a total of 15 minutes to perform their show. And the format will be in the format of a game. And when it starts, you're going to have all 4 band directors come out onto the center of the field, and there'll be 2 coin tosses. A coin toss for Division II to see who, and they'll get a chance. Do I want to go first or second? And we'll have the same thing for Division I. The first band will come out and play the first quarter. Their quarter is 15 minutes. We're going to have a quarter break. Entertainment is in the stadium, keeping fans engaged. Then you have quarter 2. Then we will have an actual Super Bowl-like halftime show. There will be a performance, a concert performance at halftime, and then you'll have quarter 3 and quarter 4. So the anticipation is having an event that starts at 6. We'll be out by around 8:30. That's going to give the venue an opportunity to clear everyone out, reset the venue for the game the next day. Might be a little bit longer answer to the question, but that's how it's going to work. But the idea is we really need to have our thinking around to get the best exposure for our institutions, especially if we're dealing with television. Television works on a time schedule, and you can't have a half hour halftime and then expect to have your game televised. It's not going to happen. It never will happen. And so we have to help orient, all of the people involved to play the role that they have within the time that will best represent the institution and the band program at the highest level.
And that's an excellent point, Mr. Grant, because in the SWAC, there's a certain time frame. And when it comes to homecoming games and those rivalry games, you have to get permission to have an extended halftime. from the conference office, because as you mentioned, those things are time sensitive. So that is, I mean, we all love the bands and they do what they do, but I guess trying to have the best show in the allotted slot time, it can be a challenge, but that's just the reality.
You're absolutely correct, and they're giving that exception to see if TV will also give the exception. But when you look at in reality, and these are just the facts of life as we're evolving now into the world of television, which is where we have to be. We have to be, and I say that again. We have to be. So long gone are the days of having it both ways. If you want the big stage, there are adjustments that come with that. And if you don't want the big stage, don't complain when you're not on it, because you want to do it a different way. It's just the way it goes. And but we hope and we think that, in work, I've never had the issue with the MEAC-SWAC challenge or the Celebration Bowl in working with the band directors to meet the time schedule. And I'm thankful for that. So it tells me that it can be done if we just put our mind to making that work.
All right. Any last comments on the band, Mr. Grant, before we move on to the football game?
I am delighted that we could have an extensive conversation on something that's brand new, because it tells me from the questions that you all have and from what you're receiving from your viewers that this is something that people want. And we're just really excited to be able to put this into place. And I want you to imagine what this will be like 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. The scale of something like this can be just immense, and what it will do for our institutions, as was mentioned around recruiting, student interest, and admissions applications to our unit. This is going to be unbelievable, in my opinion. We're going to see nothing but a renewed interest in this. And then I'll finally say this one thing, AD, if you don't mind, and that is no other game, no other bowl game of any kind will have what we will have around championship weekend with the Celebration Bowl, Cricket Celebration Bowl, and the Band of the Year. It doesn't exist. And this is the kind of innovative thinking that we need to have in order to continue to separate ourselves from the rest of the pack, because these are assets that we have within our framework that others do not to the type of scale we do. Of course, all of them have marching bands, and that's a wonderful thing. But no band performs like an HBCU marching band. No band entertains like an HBCU marching band, and our intent is to put that out into the forefront. I
know quickly, AD, you talked about, Mr. Grant, the financials with the Celebration Bowl. We know what the payout is for both teams. Are you able to discuss a number in terms of how much the bands will be getting? Is that yet to be determined?
I like the way you did that, because you want me to break that on this show, don't you? That was a very. We have the number, but we're not prepared at this point. There are other details we want to make sure when we make that full announcement. Okay, we'll be able to have that, because the reason I'm not saying it now, because based on how these conversations we're having with sponsors that are interested, that number could even be enhanced based on what some of them are wanting to do. So I'd rather not say that at this point. Yeah. We'll get it until it's all worked out, and when we give a number, it's a number that everyone will know that they can count on.
Very good point. Yeah, you're right.
All right, Brother Grant, we talking about something that's getting ready to happen all the way down the third Friday in December. We got a football game, week 0, the fourth Saturday in August. What's going on with the MEAC-SWAC challenge? I mean, that was actually the press conference that you broke this story at, was for the football game, and it has overshadowed the football game. So have at it, my brother.
And thank you again for this opportunity to be here and to talk about that, but also to talk about this game. I mean, look, the Cricket MEAC-SWAC Challenge, we are so excited about this year. We're so excited for a number of reasons. Number one, we're excited about the impact of this game being in week 0, and that the Cricket MEAC-SWAC Challenge this will again open the college football season in week 0. And that is tremendous. Number two, what makes it even more significant is that for the first time in its history, this game is going to be broadcast on ABC. And then add to that, for the first time in its history, it's going to be broadcast on ABC in prime time at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That makes this one of the biggest games that'll be played on that day. It is the only game that's going to be on network television, which we're truly excited about that. And the fact that Walt Disney Company, ESPN, and ABC saw this game as a critical programming opportunity, and to put it in prime time, and without question, for all of us, we need to understand that speaks volumes. It speaks volumes to what this content is. Now, add to that, we just happen to have a rematch from the 2021 Cricket Celebration Bowl. Now, we booked this game back in 2019 without any thought that this was occur. But I will always say God is always good. And sometimes when we're planning things and we don't know, God knows at the time when this game was booked what the circumstance would be. So we now have a rematch of two great programs, two story programs in South Carolina State, who are the 2021 national champions, against two-time SWAC champion and Jackson State, who came through both seasons with incredible records. So the fans on each side, on the MEAC side, the SWAC side, Jackson State fans are calling it the get back. They're going to get back. on the MEAC side, they're calling it the beat down. And that's what we love. We love the fact that there's a lot of energy among the fans. And I think you saw the camaraderie at the press conference among the coaches and the respect that they have. And final note to this, we are so pleased. I had a conversation with Coach TC Taylor. I've talked to them both when I talked to them, but to be able to provide for him this sort of stage for his coaching debut on, as I mentioned before, in prime time on network television with his team that he's built, and an opportunity to showcase him as a head coach, I couldn't be more pleased with that for Jackson State. And then, of course, with Coach Pugh, we know his record. And he himself said he had a very, very disappointing season last year. That his players got ahead of themselves and thought after they beat North Carolina Central that they were just automatically going to be in the Celebration Bowl. But we see what happened after that with them. But we think that the fans are going to have an opportunity to participate in something very, very special this year.
Well, I know my Florida A&M Rattlers are going to have an opportunity to be, since they'll be in the 2024 game, to be the ones who close out the season in Atlanta and open the season in Atlanta the next year. Oh, my bad. I was supposed to throw that out there. Go ahead, Jamie.
AD, you a trip. Mr. Grant, this game has been huge throughout its inception. What are you doing this year to kind of sell the game to Atlanta?
That's a very good question. The beautiful thing about the Cricket MEAC-SWAC Challenge, we moved it here in 2018 after having been in Birmingham, then Orlando, then it went from campus to campus, and we moved it here in 2018. And then at that point, our decision was, if it's going to be in Atlanta, then we're going to rebrand it. The name extended it. We added kickoff to it. And quite frankly, for our perspective, we have taken whatever the records were prior to coming to Atlanta. They're there, but we've put them on the shelf. So right now, the matchups are even. It's 2 MEAC, 2 SWAC. So this year is a tiebreaker. From our perspective, it's starting anew, and by adding certain things, we got another big announcement coming. I can't really tell it to you right now.
Another one?
Another. Look.
Go ahead and hit the breaking news sounder. Go ahead.
we just keep them coming, but there's another big announcement around this game that's going to be exciting for fans, and fans coming out this year specifically to participate in the Coca-Cola fan experience prior to the game. It's going to be something that because it's free, people are not going to want to miss this. So stay tuned as we finalize the details and get everything inked for something that's going to answer your question, Jamie. Is going to make not only Atlanta but make everyone sizzle around wanting to be here.
Yeah.
But you heard it first right here on the Black College Sports Network. Stay tuned to the BCSN for the latest and hottest breaking news in Black College sports. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, one of the big passionate conversations we had at Media Day, Mr. Grant, you talked about the history of this game and being on this platform, and now it's on ABC. Talk about the involvement and development of that, because week 0, 7-8 years ago wasn't a big deal, but week 0 is a big deal now, and I'm sure there's competition to get on week 0 now compared to several years ago. Talk about the involvement, and we had a conversation at Media Day about that, how important week 0 now is compared to many, many years ago when it was just what it was.
Well, week 0 came about back in 2016. ESPN, in conversation with the NCAA, was looking to add additional football content. And so hence the creation of week 0 as an early entry into the season. And that you were right, Charles. In 2019, there were only 5 games played in week 0. We moved to week 0 in 2021, and by 2022, there were 11 games played. There will be 11 this year games played in week 0. But I have to give some credit also to the conference commissioners, because the way it works, conferences get to put one team with the opportunity to play in week 0. And when I went to Commissioner McClellan, and at that time Commissioner Thomas, now Commissioner Steele of the MEAC, McClellan with the SWAC, to talk about the idea of moving the game into week 0, they were both very enthusiastically supportive of it. And so, Charles, as you can see, that now we're going into year 3 of being in week 0. In year 1, we were, when we went to week 0, we had College Game Day here, because it opened up the opportunity for us to access assets that ESPN had that were tied up in week 1 with all the big games. So College Game Day made an appearance here for our HBCU game against North Carolina Central against Alcorn, which was a great game, great matchup, as you well know. And then certainly, last year in having the game move to 7 p.m. and then go onto the ESPN network, and then this year moving to 7:30 onto ABC. The goal for us had always been, how do we get it to the linear network? How do we get it on ABC? And we, repositioning it into week 0, and then having some great solid matchups where we could lay a future schedule out, which we did. And we never had that for MEAC-SWAC Challenge prior to coming to Atlanta. Laying out a future schedule gives the network the best opportunity for programming, and then that we can put good solid content. This game is great content for this year, and I can understand why the executives at ABC would want to choose this game, to carry.
All right. Mr. Grant, any final thoughts on either the band of the year? And I got to be careful of that. We got to make sure we don't shorten that one to an acronym, because if we shorten that one to an acronym, it's gonna spell something. You probably already know if you say it wrong. BOTY. Anyway, any final thoughts on band of the year and or the MEAC-SWAC challenge?
You had to say that, didn't you?
Well, I'm sorry. If y'all have been around me on these podcasts, sometimes things come to my head and come out my mouth quicker than I can stop.
Well, there are great ways to use that. When you come into the championship, they're coming to kick BOTY.
Yeah.
So the band.
Extra O, BOO.
But first, I want to just say thank you guys for having me on. This has been incredible. I am very respectful of the work that you all do. Pleased with it. As we've said, it's programs like yours that we're keeping the lights on for HBCUs, our sports and everything that we do, long before it was, cachet to others. And so I'm always going to show up when you ask me to. We're going to make sure that we are as best we can breaking what news we have with you, you all, because I'm a firm believer in you support the people who support you, and so thank you for that. Cricket MEAC-SWAC Challenge, August the 26th, 7:30 p.m. broadcast live on ABC here in Atlanta, Georgia, Wakanda, and played at Center Park Stadium. There's still a few tickets left. I think we're down to about maybe 3,000 or so, but we know that those will be gone soon. So once it's sold out, as this game always does, it will be. But we're asking, if you can't come, tune in. If you can't necessarily watch it, turn your TV on anyway while you're out, doing what you need to do, because those numbers count if the broadcast is on. But the beautiful thing is that you can watch the game not only on television, but you can watch it on your mobile device. We're all mobile now, and that's another thing that we're excited about with the direction that ESPN has taken with this with our direct-to-consumer model. So thank you all. We're excited for this year's Cricket Celebration Bowl. Will be December the 16th, 2023 in Atlanta, Georgia. Kickoff will be 12 noon. And for us, Atlanta, a champion will rise. It starts in Atlanta and it ends in Atlanta. Thank you so much for having me.
And with that, we appreciate you once again, John Grant. Thank you for everything that you do for HBCU sports. Thank you for the offline conversations that we've all had with you, John. Been some very enlightening conversations. And if you have not gotten your ticket, if you've never been to the MEAC-SWAC Challenge and or the Celebration Bowl, I don't know where you've been. It's like not being. It's like not eating fried chicken and drinking Kool-Aid. It's just certain things you got to do if you're a brother or a sister. So get there. If you can't get there, we understand. Watch it. I'm just gonna say it like that. That's Charles. That's Jamie. Thanks to John Grant. I'm AD.